Welcome to Coast Vue, the show that every single day celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi such a great place to live, work, and play. Have a great show today, but before we get to our guests, I just wanted to bring your attention to a show we did last week with a young man named Austin Golding. He's actually the president and CEO of Golding Barge Lines. If you heard that show, I think you would agree with me that he's sharp. He's really sharp. In fact, I was thinking this morning, for people who know social media, there were lots of anecdotes that he added in there that were just very simplistic about the nature of the oil business these days and the global markets and the price of oil and the fact that we're not going to see this let up anytime soon, because at the end of the day, there's a serious issue with refineries in the United States. We don't have enough capacity. But, he just had a way of saying things. And he said he just, it would have been great to make some TikTok videos from some of his sayings. But if you've been curious about a sort of a non-political conversation about the state of the oil industry today and why our gas prices are so high, go to your favorite podcast and look at Coast Vue and Austin Golding, Golding, and or you can go to Facebook or YouTube and look at the SuperTalk channels, and I think you'll be glad you listened to that conversation. It's really, really terrific. I had another really interesting conversation with Hunter Dawkins, who is a publisher of the Gazebo Gazette and Pass Christian, about some of the challenges of being a local publisher. That was a terrific conversation as well. So many others. We're lucky to have Jeff Duncan every week. That's pretty awesome. But one of the things I look forward to is the opportunity to talk about the military community here in coastal Mississippi. We're working to have more from Keesler Air Force Base. We want to see more of what's happening there. And because we've had terrific communication with Brian Lamar, who is head of basically public affairs for the Seabee base, we've been able to really introduce you to some terrific people over the course of the last more than 2 years now. And today is no exception. We're going to spend some time with my new friend. Actually, what I've learned about Sacha, and I'm going to let her help me. I meant to do this before we started the show with her last name, but she just became the newest Master Chief on base. It's rare to be a Master Chief. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But pronounce your last name for me, Sacha.
It's Hasbrouck.
Hasbrouck. Okay, well, that's easy. It just seems it's spelled in a different kind of way. So I wasn't sure about that. But anyway, welcome to Coast Vue, my friend.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Well, look, congratulations, incidentally, on becoming a Master Chief, and it's exciting that you have reached that level of rank, and you've really kind of cut your teeth in the Seabees. You've been all over the world. I think you grew up in Panama City, and you had the Navy all around you growing up. Tell me about Panama City growing up and why the Navy's been so influential on you.
Well, both my grandfather and my father were both in the Navy. My grandfather did 4 years as an aviation boatswain mate, and my dad did 20 years. He was a diver, but he was rated a boatswain before diver became a rate. So he retired in Panama City from the Navy base there. So that's where I claim I'm from, because I lived most of my adult life there. Joined the Navy in 2004, and just been traveling ever since. I've been home since I joined the Navy, so it's been really nice.
Well, give us a sense of some of the places you've been. That's always interesting to me. And I always like to remind people that the Seabee base in Gulfport, the Naval Construction Battalion Center, has such a critical role all over the world. I mean, we have people assigned from this base literally all over the world doing humanitarian efforts and military efforts. And it's just, when you look at the scope of the impact that this base has, it's truly remarkable. And we attract people like Sacha, who has again really done well in the Navy and making her contribution here at the local base. But give me a sense of where you've been and what you've done in your career.
Yes, sir. I've mostly been on destroyers. I've been on 3 destroyers now. The first one was the USS Hopper, stationed out of Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Then I went to San Diego. I was on the USS Halsey and the USS Russell. Then I went to Fort Lee, Virginia. I taught at the Culinary Specialist A School, teaching all the sailors coming out of boot camp how to cook and go out to the fleet and cook. And then I was stationed on the USS Ronald Reagan in Yokosuka, Japan. And then I came down here to Pascagoula, and I was on the USS Fitzgerald while I was getting fixed to go back out to the fleet. And then we went back to San Diego, and now I'm back here in Gulfport.
Wow, that's incredible. You know, the story of the USS Fitzgerald, what the men aboard that and women aboard that ship did to contribute to the community and sort of make the best of the situation while that ship was being repaired. It's really cool to see the contributions that those sailors made, isn't it?
Yes, it was definitely an interesting tour being on that ship. It was a challenging tour, that's for sure, but it was definitely worth it.
So you mentioned that one of the things that you had to deal with there was just a tremendous number of inspections, and as the ship was brought back up to service the way it needed to, that there was a lot of check and balancing going on, wasn't there?
Oh yes, because they're practically, even though it was a commissioned ship, they treated it like a brand new ship, like it was starting from scratch. So we had to do in-serve, SMC inspections, light off assessments, basic phase, advanced phase. It was a lot. It was a lot to do in like an 18-month period. We definitely put those sailors to work, but they were very resilient, and they did every challenge that we gave them, and they did it outstanding. And it was just a great crew.
When you started your career, did you have any imagination initially, and certainly maybe even further along in your career, that you would actually attain the rank of Master Chief?
No, the goal was always to make Chief. I wanted to make Chief. That was, partially because my dad retired as a first class, so I could say at least about one pay grade higher than him. But but I always wanted to make Chief, and then after that, it was just kind of like everything else was, a bonus. Because once you make Chief, you're always just going up for a board. You don't have to take tests. So it's just, a board of your peers telling you that you've met all the goals to get advanced to the next pay grade. So, it's kind of nice to know that you were noticed for all the hard work that you did.
Only 1% of sailors reach this rank. Why is that?
I'm not really sure. It was funny because I was in Canada when I found out that I got selected for Master Chief visiting family. And I actually told my grandmother, because there was 270 senior chief cooks that were up for Master Chief, and they only promoted 10. So she kind of looked at me like, "Oh, sweetheart, you're just not going to make it."
That's really cool. And by the way, it's even more rare for females to do it. So you're in super rare company, aren't you?
Yes. There's very few. I mean, there's more now than maybe when I was a junior sailor, but it's definitely rare to see a female Master Chief. That's for sure.
I love the piece that Brian wrote about you. Again, he's got a way with words, but he talked a lot about destiny and all of that. When you read what he wrote about you, what did you think about that?
I thought it made me sound pretty good. I really liked it. It was really good. It's weird to see when you tell your story and then somebody writes it down and you read it and you're like, oh, okay, it's actually pretty good. So I'd like to not think that I'm doing outstanding things, but every once in a while it's okay to acknowledge that what you did is pretty good.
Well, first of all, you're humble, but the thing that Brian wrote about you and I heard about you is that you have a strong work ethic, you have a great sense of humor, and when you both of those things are true, then you're probably pretty good with people too. That people enjoy working with you and that you inspire others. Has that always sort of been at your core?
Yes, I believe so. Especially me growing up in the Navy and being around all different types of, ethnicities, people, growing up different ways and everything. So I've always just been around a bunch of different people my whole life. So, and especially with my job being a culinary specialist, that other rates send sailors to us to work for us for 90 days. They're called food service attendants. They help do dishes and stuff like that because we can't operate without them. We need their help. So I'm always dealing with other rates and other sailors all the time. So it's very, very easy for me to deal with people now that I've been in this job for so long.
That's good. And what I have seen and what I love about this opportunity I have through this show to introduce people to the military community is to see how many dedicated leaders, and really I'm just in general, the military, how dedicated the military community is to coastal Mississippi and how much of a contribution they're making around the world. Yeah, I mean, I'm not overstating that. I mean, if you speak, well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're coming to the end of this segment. When we come back on the other side, we'll talk a little bit about how important the role the CBs are playing really all over the world. And some places we can talk about, some places we can't talk about because, we just, they're military missions that aren't communicated publicly. But it is a great contribution, and we're so lucky to have such a strong military community here in coastal Mississippi. But this is Sacha Hasbrouck, and when we come back, we'll continue the conversation. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to Coast Vue. We were talking before we went to break about the incredible role that the military community plays here in coastal Mississippi. Literally every branch, from you think about, and at some point we'll go into Stennis Space Center and study a little bit more about what's happening there on a regular basis. And then from that point, I always, as you know, always refer to Stennis as one of the bookends. We'll talk about the different roles that the military community plays there, and then as far over as Ingalls, you've got some military presence there. Of course, the Seabees and the Air Force and Navy, and of course the Coast Guard, even some Marine presence and others. So it's the National Guard, the role the National Guard plays, working out of South Mississippi, and the role that they play. You see a lot of their training activities this time of year, which is kind of a regular occurrence here. But they're making contributions in so many different ways. So what I have the pleasure of having Sacha Hasbrouck with us. She's Command Master Chief at the Seabee base. 1% of the Navy gets the Master Chief role or title. And even less of is less possible usually for a woman. So it's rare. It's what I get. The word I'm really trying to use here. But Sacha, when you think about the role that the CBs are playing in particular, it's pretty incredible, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But I just wanted to make one correction. I'm not the Command Master Chief of the base. I'm just a Master Chief on the base.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a typo here. Thank you.
Yeah, no
but
worries.
I promoted you. So yeah, talk to me about how you perceive the role the CBs are playing around the world.
CBs are very important to any time, any kind of deployments or anything. They go out there, they can build landing strips, they can build floating docks. I mean, they play a very big part in any kind of big construction stuff that we need to do to be able to be ready to fight.
Yeah. Okay. So you're working now in the Emergency Operations Center, but you're going to soon be the Master Chief at the Colner Dining Facility. Tell me about what you're doing now, what you're going to be doing at the dining facility.
Well, right now, we're just managing. If in case there's any kind of emergency on base, we'll be the center point for everyone, and we'll make sure that we get all the word out to everyone on base if there's an emergency and everything like that. Tracking storms, severe weather, stuff like that. So something a little bit out of my comfort zone, but it's been kind of nice, doing something different for once. So I've been enjoying it. And then once I go to the galley, I'll just be the leading culinary specialist at the galley, making sure, all the sailors and Marines, Air Force, Army, everyone on base here gets fed good and, leaves fat and happy.
So you're the Master Chief, but you're also kind of the Master Chef. Is that the way you see it too?
Oh yeah, I love cooking. I love to live vicariously through everyone else that has a fast metabolism that can eat way more than I can, and so I just like to make sure people are fed good. It's the galley on a ship or on a base. It's definitely the morale of the whole place. You can tell when the food is bad because the whole demeanor of the whole crew is totally different.
You'll be able to relate to this, but one of the things that I really enjoy about this show is when I speak to restaurant entrepreneurs, people who have chosen to open their own restaurants. and the passion they bring to that and the creativity they bring to that. And it's interesting because of the TV show Master Chef and all the spinoffs that have occurred as a result of that, the average person actually has a better understanding of what goes on in the kitchen and how much thinking and creativity goes into preparation, what food prep is really all about. And then how do you make that final product and how do you get it out to the people in a way that they really like it? But it is true that people are much more aware of the whole process than they were, say, even 5 years ago. Do you find that as well?
Oh, yes, sir. Definitely. And even the caliber of the cooks that we have coming in. When I was teaching at A school, there was a lot of sailors that were already pretty knowledgeable on what they needed to do. Then, of course, there were some that you were wondering what they were doing. But for the most part, a lot of them had a pretty good grasp on what they needed to do.
So, actually, this is a great stepping stone for them. If they stay in the military, they can continue to do that role. If they leave, they're really kind of prepping themselves well for doing. I'm sure that some leave and open their own restaurants, certainly go to work for restaurants and continue their career, but it's got to be a great training ground.
Oh, definitely. And then the Navy will get them all kinds of certifications that'll cross over to the civilian sector, so that it makes it even more enticing for them to either open up their own restaurant or become, a head chef at a restaurant, because the restaurant doesn't have to pay for them to get those certifications. They already have them before they leave the Navy.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I've made this point clear many times that the number of people from all over the country who either pass through Seabee base and ultimately go somewhere else, they tend to come back here to retire. They fall in love with coastal Mississippi. And they go into all kinds of, they're working, literally, if you look at every business on the coast, there's probably somebody from the Seabee base working there in so many different roles. It's not just construction. In this case, it's food. It could be power grids. And who knows? I mean, it's just incredible. They choose to work here. Or choose to live here, and obviously they go to work here and they make their contribution. But I've heard this over and over again that when they do come to work for you, they are really well prepared. I mean, they know their stuff. And the point is you're making that the certifications they get in the CVs is very significant, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I mean, it's definitely gives them up on it somebody else that's trying to apply for the same position.
So what are you going to do when you get out? Are you going to open your own restaurant?
I want to open up a bakery. I prefer to bake. I love cooking. I'm good at cooking, but everyone likes cookies. Not everyone likes fried fish. So
yeah, I heard I heard that you make killer cookies.
Oh yeah, cinnamon rolls are my specialty. That's the one thing. Yes, everyone.
Wow, I can smell them now. What? Was that a family thing, or just how did that happen?
Yeah, so it's my grandmother's recipe, and it's a tradition for me. Every Sunday when we're underway on a ship, it's Cinnamon Roll Sunday. Always make cinnamon rolls. So that's, the crew comes to really love it. I ran into one of my old commanding officers like the day before I left Japan. She was at the exchange, and she stopped and she's like, I was just talking about your cinnamon rolls yesterday. And it had been like 10 years since I'd seen her. So it's funny. And, I even got the Fitzgerald's on deployment right now, and I got a FaceTime call from some of the chiefs there. And apparently my replacement hasn't gone on with the cinnamon roll tradition on Sundays, and they definitely let me know about that.
What makes yours so special? Tell me, what's the secret to a great cinnamon roll?
Butter.
Wow.
Butter and cinnamon. You gotta have just enough butter. I always tell everyone everything I make is fat free. So as long as you believe it, it has to be fat free.
I hear you. There's a wonderful donut shop in Greenwood. I have a hunting place up in that area of the country, in the Delta, Mississippi Delta, and it's called Honest Abe's Donuts. And they make some of the best donuts you've ever eaten, and they make really good. They make really good cinnamon rolls, and I'm always hesitant to ask about them because, I live very healthy, and during hunting season, my family and I and my closest friends, we tend to gain a little bit of weight, and one of the reasons why is those cinnamon rolls. It's just a weakness I have, for sure. Oh, yeah. Maybe if I ever get over to the base and visit, I'll come by and see and see what's so special about yours. That's pretty cool. So you'll what's the name of your place going to be called? The Cinnamon King or Queen?
I haven't even thought about that yet. I still
it's always, you never know what you're going to get on this show. I just think that's an interesting part of it. But I did hear that you are really good at it, so that's exciting. And when you get that kind of feedback, I mean, there is no better way through to anyone's heart than through their stomach. You know that well, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And obviously the best way to keep morale where it needs to be is feed them good food. Because if you feed them food they don't like, that's not a good start, is it?
Mm-hmm. No, not at all. I mean, and there's always a saying here. I would always tell my sailors, "You're only as good as your last meal." We could have 100 great meals and one bad meal, and they're going to talk about that one bad meal. So you got to always make sure you're tasting all your food. You're making sure everything's good before you put it on out there on the line for the sailors to have. Because if you wouldn't eat it, then why would you put it on the line to feed other people?
So, Sasha, we're coming to the end of our time together, but just in a real 20 seconds, if you were talking to a young woman who was considering the Navy, what would you say to them?
I would tell them, go for it. Anything's possible. We can do everything that the male sailors can do. And who knows, one day they could be a Master Chief.
Like you, and that 1%, and then of course a woman who's makes it even rarer. It's been a pleasure to visit with you, Sasha, and like I said, hopefully one day I'll get by there and try one of your cinnamon rolls. I'm due to come to the base. Maybe I can get over there before Brian leaves. But it's been a pleasure, and take care, and good luck to you as you continue your career, and we'll stay in touch. Thank you very much for joining me today.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Cynthia Sutton from the Ocean Springs Chamber. We'll see you after this break.